Okay. Hi, everyone. It's cutting out together where you can't hear. I had a dream last night, and the counter to my expectation, the room was filled with like 100 people. It was like rows of people. And I was like, well, I was really hoping for just a few, like 4 or 5. And then I thought, okay, well, that's fine. I wasn't nervous. I got to the microphone and technology. And when I came back, there were only 4 people. Like, good, let's do this. But you're all here, and thank you. This is my first talk here, and I've written things out. So I'll probably read what I wrote. And then kind of come in and out of that because there was a lot of thought put into the text, and I'm not at a place where I could just speak freely from the heart about the topics. I really consider myself a beginner for Buddhism, and maybe someday I will just speak from the heart. But I'm going to keep referring back to the text, and yeah, let's see. Maybe you saw my intro text in the Roar, and I was trying to find a picture to put in there and look at images of different Dharma images and then pictures of myself. And I didn't like any of it. And then the one picture that I chose is like a selfie. And so I went, that's perfect. Because it's me taking a picture of myself and I'm wearing my sunglasses and you can see the reflection of me doing a selfie. And I'm like, yeah, that's funny. I thought it was funny. I hope you did too. And try to not take things so deeply and so heavily. Often the Dharma work can be a deep dive and doesn't have to be. We can have fun with it too. Yeah. So it seems that the biggest conflicts I've had in my life or with others have arisen because I've thought too much of myself or too little of myself. And I'm told that they're both types of an ego exaggeration, like too much and too little. And there's this underlying assumption of attachment energy to a self that doesn't exist as we might think it does. And I have a little story. A few years ago, I had a very big conflict. It seems like a few times a year I have something big that occupies my mind energy. And I was the department chair I work at a community college, and I was working with my dean trying to get her to do something for the department. I can't remember the details. But just a little backstory. I've been working there since 2004, and I teach English as a second language. So all our students are immigrants, and we're trauma workers, we're social workers, and we're teaching language. And it seems like we're always at a battle with something, external forces, like trying to support this population of students. And so our department faculty would carry some trauma or karma, as Lama says, kind of the same thing, with us, like big burdens. And so we're always ready to, like, we're always the victims and trying to defend the victims, which is, I mean, that's true too. Like we really are trying to make things happen. But I remember when I first started working there, we used to be at a satellite campus in Roseville, and we worked really hard to get all the students to the campus. And our dean at that time was like, okay, we've got these portable buildings for you, and you're good, you're on campus now. And it took so much work to make that happen. And then it was like, the bathrooms that went with the portables were the little girls. It said girls and boys. And the toilets were kids' toilets. It's like, this is it. There's one more thing. This is how it is. We're always struggling. And so that was 20 years or 18 years ago, no, 20 years ago. And we carry that story with us in everything we do. So in that moment when my dean, and I had brought another colleague into the meeting with her because she wasn't hearing me and what I was trying to say. I'm like, I need some support. And she just said, Jessica, it's not all about ESL. And I was like, angry, really angry. Yes, it is. I'm thinking inside, it is all about, like, this is my whole life. This is everything I do. And then under that, it was like, this is about me. This is all, of course it's about me. What do you mean? And I was so upset with her. And as I was able to use the Dharma in that practice of reflecting, like, no, it's not really about me. And it's definitely not about me or my students in the way that I think, yes, it is, and it isn't. Like this idea of seeing things a little bit differently is the work, or being able to take a different perspective is the work. So I have a little request for you, and that it's my hope that you can listen today with your hearts by turning down your inner judges and turning toward me as a friend. As while I am a professor and that I have been teaching in an academic setting for more than 20 years, I'm not really here to teach. Maybe if you want to know about grammar and English language, andragogy, or well, not spelling and not publishing, because I made you bookmarks, but I made a spelling error. Changed it. It was funny because I thought, oh, there's something wrong with this word. And I just kept putting it away. I'm like, I don't know. And I was in a rush and I sent it to print. But any of you who are in publishing, you know, you need to have other editing eyes before you publish anything, because our brains and our minds put what we think is there. So anyway, yeah, I won't be your spelling editor, or at least not my own editor. Yeah, for those kinds of things, like for grammar and teaching, I could easily help you with that. But for our purposes, I'll just say that I'm a beginning student of Dharma, and I have a hope of sharing my experiences with you and making connections with friends. And I say this because I was once asked what I would be teaching for this talk, and there's no reason for me to teach you anything, just to share. For me, life is it's very centered around relationships. And to be in good relationships, I need to have a clear understanding of my own mind, what it is, and how it prevents me from showing up in beneficial ways for myself, my children, my students, my colleagues, my friends, my family, anyone really. This is the Dharma work for me, and I know it requires both wisdom and compassion. It wasn't long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I deeply realized this, like that relationships are central to everything. And I like to imagine our energies like fascia, connective tissue. It's metaphor. And I can be honest when I say that this is more important to me than philosophizing about things that can't be known or being right in an argument. I don't actually like argumentation. I teach argumentation, but I don't like argumentation for the reason that it often ends up being a struggle to defend a position, which feels awful for me. I prefer inquiry and deliberation, combined with a good dose of curiosity and perspective shifting. And so my request is, if for some reason my ego gets the best of me, or I come across as needing to be right or seen as good, and this happens all the time, like especially this needing to be seen as good or doing things in the right way. If for whatever reason it's happening and it's creating some kind of conflict, I'm hoping that that somebody will say as a friend, like, that doesn't sound like it's aligning authentically. that you would speak up to me if I said something or did something, that you would say, that didn't sound right, or that didn't feel right. I love these kinds of conversations. It's relationships, and maybe we've already had one. Yeah. And something else I wanted to add in here is, like, I don't know if this will ever happen, but I often imagine the 1,000-arm Chenrezig embracing and connecting each of us in the sweetest of hugs, with the feeling of like a big pile of puppies, playful puppies. I don't know. Maybe, maybe just an imagination, maybe not. Okay. I had slides that I was going to share. I'm not going to share. I don't need them yet. Yeah, I'll need them when we get to the verses, and maybe help me in a minute. So my history with Buddhism, I met Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism of SGI or Soka Gakkai while I was living in Japan in 1993. And while I was there, I was taken in by elder Japanese sisters. At a time of need, I really needed help. And they took me under their wings and they taught me a lot about Mahayana Buddhism. And many of you will be familiar with the mantra Nam-myoho Renge Kyo from the Lotus Sutra, and with the fundamental principle that anyone could become a Buddha with faith and practice and study, and by doing Daimoku, which is the mantra chanting. And with eyes fixed and open, there's a scroll with Nichiren and all of Nichiren's disciples on the scroll. So eyes open, paying attention to this scroll, this Gohonzon, and beautiful calligraphy. In that first year of practice, at 23 years old, I took refuge. I gave a speech to an audience of some 150 people that I had written in Japanese, and I banked. I say this bank because I actually had a bank book where I recorded my hours, 350 hours of meditation. And one day during a marathon, as a highlight of my practice, I sat for 4 hours. Was in it. But as time passed, I continued with the practice on and off for 15 years. It was really hard to come back here and find a Sangha. And my discipline faded, and eventually I no longer even had an altar. When I was 31, I met my girl's dad. We got married, established careers, bought houses, had children. And during that next decade, I began to sink into the greatest depression, which is also a type of attachment energy, and anger turned inward. It was, to me, it was due to overwhelm and a lack of support. And definitely it's negative karmic seeds that had ripened and grew like weeds. And I was drowning in my own sea of samsara and karma. It didn't matter that we were working to build our lives to be financially successful. Due to intense fear and anxiety, my mind broke. And I had to leave to save myself from, to save him, our children, from all of this that I was central to and creating, expressing. And then my leaving caused the greatest inferno ever. It's as if somebody took a flamethrower and extinguished our life, leaving nothing behind but ashes. And it wasn't the only dark time that I've had in my life. It wasn't the only time that I felt near to death. It wasn't the only time that I had to sit in my own hell. But since then, I have continued on this path and understand my own mind, to focus to make a shift in the focus of my attention from being a victim or being the oppressor, kind of two sides of the same coin, to being one responsible for and compassionate towards this cyclic existence that we all live in, that we call samsara. I've been attending Lion's Roar since 2020, and though the very first time I came here was in 2016, when Rinpoche Kangshir was visiting, and I know this because there are pictures of him in the hallway with my young girls. They were 7 and 9, and so it was kind of fun to have that connection, like knowing that cycling, knowing I want to be here, but kind of like, well, not ready yet, not ready yet. I entered the path in March of 2022, and then I took refuge in December of 2024 here with Lama and with Venerable Namcho. And I find myself still on this path, but with you all, a beautiful Sangha, and me, and I'm ready to share my experience with these 8 verses for mind training. And 6 months ago, when they put me on the schedule to to give a talk here, I immediately put out a lesson plan, like everything I was going to do, and I sent it to Lama. I'm like, this is not what I'm going to do, but this is what I think I would do if I were to do it right now. And then I knew things would change, and they changed a lot to coming to this point. Because at the beginning of the year, I committed to a 3-month retreat from afar on Zoom with Shavasti Abbey in Washington. I think some of you are familiar with it, and Susan's the one that recommended it to me. And we met daily from 5:30 to 7 a.m. The focus was on developing compassion with the thousand-armed Chenrezig, who is essentially our Buddha nature in its fully purified and evolved form. And for the analytical part of the sadhana, where we might otherwise put in a Lamrim meditation, Lama Zopa Rinpoche had added this mind training, the 8 verses of mind training. So instead of the Lamrim, we did the 8 verses every day. Well, we started during week 3, we started with verse 1, and then week by week added another verse. And after we finished, I continued with the Chenrezig sadhana, but I added different Lamrim meditations, just depending on what I was focused on or needing. And then about a month ago, I decided that I needed to revisit the verses with the goal of taking them to heart memory. And it's possible that this interest appeared as it aligned with the course that I have been studying with Venerable Sangye Kadro, and since last September on Shantideva's engaging the Bodhisattva deeds, or the Bodhikaryavatara. And we were on chapter 8 for a couple of months. And chapter 8 is the 5th paramita on meditative concentration. It teaches that self-cherishing is the root of all suffering and mental distraction and true connection, or concentration, especially a calm abiding. And it requires that you let go of attachment to the body and to lust, and also adds practices like exchanging self and others. So that chapter aligned really well with these practices, with the 8 verses for mind training. And essentially what Venerable Khandro told me in a response to one of my questions about how the ideas are connected, I have a little quote here from her. And she said, there's a strong connection between Shantideva's teachings on exchanging self with others and the emptiness of the self and I. Meditating on each of these supports the other one. The more we can understand the lack of a real, inherently existent self, the better we'll be able to let go of self-centeredness and work for others. And the more we work on those meditations, exchanging self for others, bodhicitta, etc., the better will be our understanding of emptiness, because those practices create a lot of merit and purify a lot of negativities. And we need to do both of those to realize emptiness. So something compelled me to revisit these verses. Nobody told me to do it, but I wanted to, and I started. And it seemingly aligned itself with like the chapter and where having finished the retreat. And also we had a pleasant visit from Kangsyur Rinpoche again. Was it just last month? Yeah. And his whole book has to do with those mind training and his version of those verses. And I'm like, oh, that's another thing. These are all coming together. I love the alignment. And so I don't think there's anything mystical about this all coming together in alignment, because it's a common point on this at that point in the Lamrim path. It's that's where everything comes to this place of exchanging self with others. So the 8 verses introduction. I realize I said that I didn't want to teach you anything, but I thought it could be helpful to explain what these verses are as a reminder for those of you who already know, and maybe an introduction or an overview for those who don't know. And the 8 verses for training the mind are attributed to Geshe Langri Tangpa, the 11th century, 11th to 12th century. Who is a Karanta master and disciple of Atisha's lineage. And they're all basically about shifting your focus away from yourself and learning to care about others more deeply. And it's a part of a tradition of Lojong, or mind training, where again you work on letting go of your ego to develop real compassion. A little side note, I was on retreat last week at Sharvasti Abbey and browsing books in their public library. And there's a little handwritten note on the bookshelf that says, everything is mind training. It's like, yes, it is all mind training. And that's true. And it also makes me think, what do I want to expose my mind to? What do I want to train my mind to believe or to think or to do? One of the main ideas of it is bodhicitta, or the wish to become enlightened. And it's not just for yourself, but to help others too. The verses teach you to drop the obsession with the 8 worldly concerns, like always wanting praise or success, or being afraid of criticism or loss. Instead, you try to see everything as a chance to grow and stay steady no matter what. It's really just a way to work on being kinder, calmer, and less reactive in everyday life. I thought we could go through the verses, there's 8 of them, and chant Om Mani Padme Om after each one. Would you interested in that? Will you help me? And I have these bookmarks, but they're really small print. And I corrected thank you, the spelling error on there. You'll always think of me in my human intelligence, right? We have AI, and then we have HI. I'm the HI. Thank you so much. So this is for, I'm sharing my screen, but it's showing that sidebar. Let's see. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay. So verse 1, precious and dear, with the thought of attaining awakening. And if you'd like to say them with me, please, I can start over and we can do it together. Yeah. With the thought of attaining awakening for the welfare of all beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will constantly practice holding them dear. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Verse 2, counteracting arrogance and developing respect. Whenever I am with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all, and from the very depth of my heart, I will respectfully hold others as supreme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Verse 3, examining the mind. In all actions, I will examine my mind, and the moment an affliction arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly confront and avert it. Om Mani Padme. Verse 4, opening to people you find offensive. Whenever I meet a person of bad nature who is overwhelmed with negative energy and intense suffering, I will hold such a rare one dear as if I have found a precious treasure. Verse 5, accepting defeat and offering the victory to others. When others, out of jealousy, mistreat me with abuse, slander, and so on, I will practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to them. Verse 6, accepting hurt and seeing the other person as a teacher. When someone I have benefited and in whom I have placed great trust hurts me very badly, I will practice seeing that person as my supreme teacher. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Verse 7, sweet and endearing mothers. In short, I will offer directly and indirectly every benefit and happiness to all beings, my mothers. I will practice in secret, taking upon myself all their harmful actions and sufferings. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. In verse 8, the 8 worldly concerns. Without these practices being defiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, I will practice without grasping to release all beings from the bondage of the disturbing, unsubdued mind and karma. Om Mani Padme Hum. While in Darshan with Lama proposing this idea to him, I mentioned that I had been paused on verse 6, and he suggested that I make that my focus. And I thought there wasn't enough material here because I could only think of one person that had hurt me, and he said, it only takes one. and so I'll share another little story with you. Well, I'm not really sharing a story. I'm just making a connection back to the experience with the one person. And I had immediately thought of the relationship I've had with my girls' dad. And, oh, sure. Okay, and then we'll come back to verse 6. But and it's the relationship is dynamic, and it's been helping me understand this idea of emptiness. Not that it is him or him as a physical person or a separate entity, but instead like this interaction with our relational dynamic or the energy, the patterns that we have. And I've seen them repeated in my life. And then for a long time after we separated, I had to retrain my mind and my thinking. And I had a therapist early on, like when we first separated, who said, every time you think of him doing something to you, take a mirror, take your hand and bring it back to yourself. So I could redirect this thinking, like, because it came up a lot. It was like taking over my world. It's him, it's what he's doing, and this cause of these things. I never really said I was a victim, but it's implied. Like there's this oppressor and this victim dynamic, this oppressor and this victim dynamic that shows up in my work, right? It's like it comes up again and again. And I had to really retrain my thinking to stop blaming him as the cause of my suffering. And I would also repeat these hand movements, like, I don't know, I felt like there were spider webs, cobwebs, and so I would take my hands to like remove these spider webs and like, and it's kind of like wrapping cotton candy. like, to pull it out, to get rid of this thinking that was obsessive. And I can't tell you how many times I did that. And over time, the need to see him as a cause of my pain has diminished. And these days, I'm even able to help my girls see ways of relating to him. It's teachable moments. And to be able to see things differently, to help them see things differently, to help me see things differently. So if a conflict comes up for them and their dad, and say, well, he's teaching you in the way he knows. What's at his heart? His heart is to share what he knows, to help you be safe, to let you to express his love, even if it's in a way that you would never do it or I would ever do it. It's still rooted in this desire for them to be happy and for him to be happy. Like we don't even have to know exactly, but we can just know that generally speaking, that we all have this desire to be happy. And I've been able to watch a potential story that might have unfolded in a very negative way, just kind of dissolve and fall apart, and it doesn't have that same sticky characteristic anymore. So being able to see things differently is how we can apply emptiness in our daily lives. Not believing something is fixed or a person will always be a certain way. And even if we expect them to behave in particular ways, wouldn't we then be co-creating that outcome? Being able to see my girls' dad as a teacher instead of fearing him as an enemy is me applying emptiness. Being able to see my boss, right? It's like looking out for a bigger picture, not just me or my department. Being able to shift perspectives and see things differently is applying emptiness. I have that I rather just shift that part. I mean, the chart was fully guru. Like um, sorry, the one where I got stuck and the verse is when someone I ended and practicing that person as my supreme teacher. Thank you. Right, so this comes back to my boss, my girls' dad, right? These people that I had focused on as being this cause of suffering, and they're not really. If I can see it in a different perspective, I can look at it as great. Thank you. And when talking with Lama about this, he said, let's look at the different translations of this verse. So you're going to focus on this verse. And I found a website that had translated all of these. I can share that with you if you'd like. I can share any of the sources with you if you'd like. But you can see like the term for the other person is holy guru. Sorry, it's kind of small, huh? Does that help? It's a little bit. Anyway, holy guru, excellent spiritual friend, true spiritual teacher, real teacher, precious teacher, great spiritual teachers. And then in front of it, you have this my, always connecting back to this me, which again is this false perception of being separate from. And yeah, we could spend time on this, but I thought maybe it'd be better time spent on an open share.
Omo araya pacaya indi Om araya pacana indi Omo araya